welcome to Turing Dev Talks. This is Alina, your host for the day, and I'm tuning in from India. Today we have a very special guest on the panel who is joining us from Turkey. Ziad has 15 long years of experience in the software industry. Amongst the many tech stacks and languages that he is well versed in, he has worked on .NET, Angular, C, Pascal, Asterisk. Believe me, the list is endless. And today he's here to talk about Angular and answer one of the most important questions of the 2020s. Is Angular a dying framework? Well, hi Ziad, thank you so much for joining us for this discussion today. We're really happy to have you here. How are you doing?
Hi Elena, it's nice to see you here again. And thank you for your nice introduction and thank for hosting me on this discussion. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Ziad. It's really a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Elena, again.
Now, before we begin, Ziad, I'd personally like to ask you one of the most important questions, I guess, that is out there in the software industry. If you have to choose between Angular and React, which of the two will you prefer?
Actually, it might be a long discussion to answer this question, but briefly, I can say it depends on the case. Each case has its own characteristics, its own specification, peculiarities, and there is no one answer for that question. So that I can answer this question this briefly.
Right. I think I absolutely agree with you. Both of these have different use cases, and both of these languages, frameworks, libraries are used, of course, in different places. Now, And of course, we cannot deny the fact that while Angular is a framework, React is a mere library, right?
Yes, I agree with you totally, Elena. Angular is a framework. You can build everything inside Angular. Okay, and using the Angular way. While React is you can create a piece of code or piece of components to reuse it somewhere else. That's the main difference between these two libraries or these two things.
Right, of course. And I think we've already begun the debate on React versus Angular or Angular versus React. What, according to you, are the primary differences between the two, React and Angular?
There is some of them. Let's start by the starting or the initialization of these two libraries. And for Angular, let's say in terms of the creator or the founder of Angular is created or founded by Google, while React is maintained by Facebook. For sure, Angular started out on 2009, 4 years before React, while React starting on 2013 actually. There's some difference also between these two libraries. For example, in DOM, where Angular using or managing the DOM in the real DOM, while React managing the virtual DOM, with ideas for mobile first applications. Okay, that's in terms of let's say dynamic binding or dynamic UI binding. Okay, we can say that Angular is binding at plain object or property level directly between the object or the input to that plain JavaScript object, while React actually direct linking of state to the UI. And in terms of learning curve, for sure, Angular after it became Angular. When I'm saying Angular, we have to differentiate between AngularJS and Angular, which is when saying Angular, I mean by Angular is Angular 2+. And it's different one than AngularJS. It has, in terms of learning curve, it has a steep one. It's not the same like with React, which is moderate or moderate. On GitHub, both their own popularity. Let's say, for example, for Angular in GitHub has more than 40,000 stars, while for sure here we can say React. We can see React is more popular. It has more than 100,000 stars on GitHub repository. Okay. One thing is to add here, actually, Alina, is we got the usage of, let's say, I mentioned that AngularJS is different a different language library than the Angular 2+. Okay, AngularJS start using the JavaScript language, okay, at 2009, while and React for sure using JavaScript as programming language. But when Angular to become in the picture, Google transferred rebuild the Angular using a different programming language, which is TypeScript, which is not so famous as JavaScript. So I hope that answers the question here. For sure, the list is very long, and we can keep talking about it till the late of the night. But I hope that can clear the picture. And
yes, it definitely does answer my question. And I think by now it's pretty clear that both React and Angular have different use cases and they're used in different places. And I think it mostly depends on the kind of project a developer is particularly working on, right? Now, to give our audience a better context, could you also walk us through the different use cases of both React and Angular? When can developers make use of Angular and when can they make use of React?
Okay, as I said, I mentioned at the beginning, there is no direct answer or one answer for this question. But let's talk about facts. There is opinion, right? Developers might have, each one has its own preferences, has its own preferred language over the other. But there is facts. There is not. Let's talk about this one first. There is nothing you can do with Angular and you can do in React, that for sure. But for sure also, it's their own way. I can achieve the same task or the same mission in Angular and in React, but using the Angular way for Angular and React way for React. And in terms of showcases or the user who is using Angular, who is using React, you can find actually big names behind each one of them. For example, Angular used by PayPal, Forbes, Google for sure, which is developed it or maintained it, and much more actually. As well, on the other hand, also React has its own big names using like Uber, Netflix, Facebook also for sure, and much more. So it's when to use or when developer can make use Angular or use case. There is, as I said, there is no. This is my opinion for sure. Someone might not agree with me, but based on my experience, I can say this. Most of them you can use it, but as I said at the beginning, it totally depends on the case. Each case has its own characteristics and its own specifications.
Absolutely. Each case is different, and it mostly depends on the developer and the kind of framework or library they are willing to use. Of course, that's very true. And of course, I'd like to add that big names use both React and Angular, as you've just mentioned, as you've stated above. And I think that it mostly depends on the kind of project the developer is working on, right? Here, I'd like to call upon all senior developers who are willing to work remotely with elite companies in the US with the Silicon Valley. We have jobs in 100+ technologies, including React and Angular. If you believe to be confident about your skill sets, you can head on to turing.com/jobs and apply now. Now, coming back to you, Ziad, you have given us a very good picture of both Angular and React. And of course, you've mentioned repeatedly that both have different use cases, and it mostly depends on the developer on where they would like to use any of the two. Could you also tell us some major points why Angular should be used by developers and why they should definitely choose Angular above other frameworks? And what all is Angular good at?
Okay, let me answer this question based on the project I've done in Angular and my previous experience with Angular. I don't have such experience with React, by the way, but I read a lot about it and use it for testing sometimes. Yes, but mainly I'm using the Angular framework. Angular, first of all, is providing a rich set of features or pre-made libraries and reusable components. And for example, there's the Angular CLI, which I can use it to generate or scaffolding classes, components, services, etc., which for sure optimize the developer efforts for creating this usual components for which you have to create a lot of them in each project. For sure, there's some more things here since it was I started using Angular at 2012, I think 2012, yes, about 9 years ago. That time was AngularJS and based on AngularJS JavaScript, which was quietly easy to migrate to and use. I was before we were using jQuery before of Angular. But one thing I found it is the providing this server. The most important thing here I have to mention is the rendering of server-side rendering. That I can create a single-page application with server-side rendering for templates, HTML templates, which can be rendered on the server, which is different from each based on the if I have to navigate from one record to another record from database, for example, I can build different components based on the authorization or the permissions for the current session user, etc. So there is actually, for my preferences, I always prefer to use Angular over React. This is personal, as I said, it's personal preferences, and for sure, let's agree for this fact that there is nothing you can do it with Angular. You can do it with Angular, and you can't do it in React.
Of course, that's very true. And definitely Angular is a framework, and there are a lot of features that are extra in Angular that React might lack. And we have got an answer to the first question where I asked you about what you would prefer, Angular versus React, and now you've finally revealed the truth that you would prefer Angular, which is very honest and very true. Okay, now I think we should move towards a topic that intrigues our audience the most. What does the job market look like for Angular developers, especially?
I'm a specialist in the markets here in this markets about, but I can say from what I've seen on Google or on the job offers I saw in LinkedIn, Google, and all of these other platforms. I think it's from the latest trend of 2020 and 2021, the number of jobs for both frameworks has to be increased, but is roughly the same. For sure, React is a bit ahead of Angular, right? We can see that React is founded to be mentioned in 47% the listing, which mentioned to come on from front-end frameworks, while Angular is pick up to 41% of the share, and the rest will go with the other. Like the third one might be in this list, might be Vue.js, I think, yes. But as I say, as we can see from the popularity, because React is based or using the JavaScript programming language, which is used a long time ago, and a lot of developers started using it, especially after bringing the Node.js, which built on JavaScript. So that might give the advantage to React because of this popularity, right? But on the other hand, we don't have to forget about Google behind the Angular, and I respect the Google way where
it definitely looks like Angular's spark is still alive, and it doesn't seem to be going anywhere soon.
No, I don't think so.
Right, of course. Now I believe, Ziad, that we are in the end game, and I think we shouldn't delay the most debated question anymore. So, in a time where React is getting popular by the day, do you think Angular is a dying web framework?
No, I don't think so. It's there is not such actually prediction for now, like Angular is dying. But maybe the popularity of React, because Rails were using the JavaScript programming language, and don't forget the Facebook popularity there, right? Maybe Facebook is used by a lot of people. Half of the world using Facebook, right? 3 billion of people using Facebook, have accounts on Facebook that give it the advantage here rather than over the Angular. But we don't have. We have to keep in mind that Angular is just been diverted. The attention has just been diverted to Angular now. Especially, we have to remember that Angular semi-rebuilt it again after migrating from AngularJS to Angular. So we are at the beginning of the game, by the way, and I believe there's a long time to discover or to find the answer for this question. But I don't think that Angular is dying at all. No, for sure.
That sounds about right. That's true, I think.
Yeah.
And I think we've also seen how quickly Angular rebuilt its community and transformed itself from AngularJS. And there's no wonder that this community is still one of the best.
Actually, can say that Angular still continues to have strong support from an equality. A tech giant like Google, okay, when they provide something or provide such a new framework to the developers, always Google have its this way. If you go in history for a few years ago, when Google provides such new framework or such new technology, it's always bring it as a product with everything. The same. I can't say that Google is the Apple of the software. How the Apple creating the products or the quality of the products is the same way as Google in software. For example, I remember when Angular brought the Go programming language, right? It's bring it to achieve something for server-side development, right? When Google went to the mobile development, they bring the Flutter, bring the Dart one, and using the Flutter. And now when Google targeting the web applications, or by the way, we can use Angular in cross-platform application. We can use build mobile application, desktop application, as well as for sure the web application based on Angular. Using Angular, here Google decided to go with the new programming language, right? Which is TypeScript. It's not been used before Angular. So I can understand this strategy somehow of long-term thinking. So it's long-term strategy. I don't think Google going to give up for it because it has its own line of production for Angular.
That's true, and I agree with you on that as well. And on a closing note, what do you think the future of Angular looks like?
From my point of view, of my opinion here, I believe Angular going to become larger and larger and have more support, more community, larger community next 5 years. That because a lot of things, maybe now I'm talking about now, it's easy to start a new project in React, for example, comparing with the Angular. But that you will face something wrong later. Okay, especially for startup. Let's say, always we have bias to action. We need to create something. I need to create development as soon as possible. I need to finish it as soon as possible. I can start with anything just to bring this product online or for my investor or etc. whatever. But Angular take this into consideration at the beginning. Actually, I can say this. They are following in Angular. I can say. Angular way, following the software engineering principle, the solid principle, the design pattern, the best design pattern to use it in this in development inside Angular. Okay, and I can see you can see this from the structure of building Angular application. We have the HTML file and the code behind, or the TypeScript components behind it. Each single UI component is called components, which has 3 different files in Angular, or 4, maybe 5. Let's say. Sorry about that. Yes, it's 5. The one is for HTML, one for code behind. HTML is for sure for UI. The TypeScript one for the code behind to manage the business logic and communication with the web server or server side or whatever. We have its own CSS or style sheet file for it, and for sure the testing one. So it's software engineers, I believe me, if they like to follow this kind of separation, single for testing. If I need to check the layout, I have to go to this HTML file. If I need to change the business logic or change the way the components communicating with the server side, going to the code behind file. If need to change the style, going to the style sheet page, testing the same, etc. You know, it makes sense. It makes sense in logical thinking for building a UI applications. That's all what I can answer here, actually, Alina.
Okay, thank you so much. That was really insightful, and I hope that all our developers and our audience enjoyed this discussion as much as I did. And
I hope so. Thanks.
Yeah, and thank you again so much for being a part of a global community of extremely skilled developers and engineers. We were really proud and we were really happy to have you here for this discussion. And we hope that this video reaches the larger developer community and helps us give many more such opportunities to developers like you from across the globe.
Hope this can answer this epic question for much of developers, especially for the juniors who is joining or confused about choosing between Angular or React or this or that. Believe me, follow your passion and use the best one based on your existing learning. As good for sure to learn new things always.
Right, of course. As Ziad just mentioned, follow your passion and keep learning.
Sure.
Right.
Thank you, Elena.
Thank you so much, Ziad. To everybody out there, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop us an email at support@turing.com. Let us know in the comments below what you would like to learn in the next video and who you would like to see on the panel in the next video. Give us a big fat thumbs up if you like this video, and do not forget to subscribe to Turing.com. We will be back with many more such Turing Dev Talks and Turing Developer Diaries in the upcoming videos. Till then, stay safe, stay home, and click on the link in the description below to apply to Turing. Thank you and happy working.